Blog Talk Radio.
Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Sunday edition of Kick-Ass Fantasy Football's Fantasy Football Show. This is your host this week, Jumpin' John Prevo, and I have the awesome JB online with me. JB, this is normally your week, so why don't you kick us off? How you doing?
Hey, man, I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Henry kind of disappeared on us, the commissioner, this week, so it's me and you, but it should be a fun show. We got a lot to talk about, and, hey, man, we've already got one game in the books, and who saw that coming, man? Look what the Rams did this week.
Yeah, I tell you, it definitely was a surprise just because no one really expected anything from St. Louis. I can't say I fully bought into Arizona as the powerhouse. So it's quite interesting. It was definitely a great Thursday night game. I know a lot of people had put Ryan Williams into the lineup expecting a lot. I was one of them on one of my teams. But, you know, that's the way fantasy football goes, I guess. At least if you had Larry Fitzgerald, you got some point due to, 8 receptions, I believe you had? So if you're in
PPR, absolutely.
Yeah,
it was a little befuddling, though, man. Granted, their offense hasn't done much this year, but, you know, their defense has definitely been a strong anchor point for them, and they just didn't show up. I don't know. It was a bit befuddling. It was fun to watch. Of course, I had Steven Jackson on my bench. I don't know if it would have made that big of a difference. I don't think he wound up, probably got me 7 or 8 fantasy points from my bench, so I'm not really too upset about it. But, yeah, just wasn't the way I expected that game to go down.
Well, fortunately, there's a lot more to go, so if one game didn't do much for you, we got about 15. Well, actually, we don't have 15 more. We got 4 teams on a bye this week, so we have to make sure we're careful with our lineups, but so we got about 10 games left to go, 12 games left to go, 11 games left to go. So it's going to be a good day. My two favorite teams, and yours, I believe, as well. We have the Steelers and Eagles kicking off at 1 o'clock, so I'll be glued to the TV for that one.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I'm glad for once I think I get to actually stick it to the Eagles fans today. We're coming off a bye. We're at home. We've only got 1 win on the season. We're healthy at defense now. We've got back Palomalu. We got back Harrison. I think it's going to be a long day for the boys in green, and I could see this. I could see this game being over by halftime. But you know, it's a little bit of wishful thinking as well, as I am the Steelers fan. So but I can't wait. A little over an hour to go.
Yeah, and I am one of the odd mix of both Eagles and Steelers fans. So I think. Either way, it's going to be pretty exciting for me. I will admit I am a little bit higher of an Eagles fan, so I am hoping the Eagles pull it out. I think the Steelers are definitely a Super Bowl contender. They're airing it out a little bit more this year, so it's going to be, I would think, a high-scoring game.
Man, we can take you right back to the World War II era, man. You could be a Steagles fan, for anybody listening out there who's been watching the NFL for that long. Maybe they can relate, but yeah, it's been a few yesterdays.
Right. Well, I don't know if I'm going to be considered a Steagles fan. I will say I fight Eagles over the Steelers, so that should make most of the listening base pretty happy. But if we remember last year, we did share a few Steeler stories last year. JB and I were on the show on Tuesday nights together last year, so it was definitely a fun time.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you what, JB, when Judge Ray Jaffe and I host our show, we usually talk a little bit about our own Kick-Ass Fantasy League. So why don't we, and believe me, it has nothing to do with the fact that I'm 4-0 in the league.
Sure. So, of course not. Why would it?
No, I mean, it's just purely objective review of the league and our week's games. But just want to mention that, again, I am 4-0. So, and how are you doing, JB?
Not quite that well. I'm 1-3.
1-3.
Yeah. It's been rough. But in my defense, in our league, I have the second most points scored against me. Okay, you look at your record, for instance, you have the least points scored against. You've got a whopping 464 points put against you. I, on the other hand, have 630 points put against me over the stretch so far, second only behind the professor, who's got 660 points scored against him. So I've had a really tough go at it thus far. I've been playing, it seems like, all the juggernauts. But, I'm right in the middle of the pack as far as points for. I've got about 550 points that I've thrown up myself. So, but, I'm still a little bit far cry from yours. You've put up, I believe, nearly 600 points. So you're 600 against the 450 scored against you. You should be 4-0.
I will admit, first 2 weeks I wasn't a scoring bonanza. A little bit of luck involved, a little bit of timing, as it is in any fantasy league, and so I was able to scrape by those two. I did put up the most points last week, so I'm rounding out, and I think my team's built to last. I'm built for running into the winter, so I think we're expecting big things out of Jumpin' John in the Kick-Ass Fantasy League.
Yeah. Only time will tell, my friend. Only time will tell. But yeah, hey, you start off 4-0, you've got to feel pretty confident. The playoffs are certainly within your reach. I need to make some, miraculous comebacks. I can't. Yeah, sure. Applaud yourself. Here, do you have an explosion going off every time we mention my team? Yeah, pretty bad right now. It's dismal. Yeah.
But I'll tell you what. So we're talking about fantasy leagues, and we're talking about fantasy questions. Let's get right into it. We had a fantasy question during the week, and this was from Jersey in the house, and let's hope that Jersey's going to call in during the show. He's a faithful Tuesday night listener, I know that. So Jersey in the house asks, he said he just traded Ben Tate and Brandon LaFell for Greg Jennings, and it's a 1-point PPR. He still has Murray and MJD and Spiller on the bench, and his wide receivers are Wallace, Harvin, and Reggie Wayne. So what do you think moving Ben Tate and Brandon LaFell for Greg Jennings?
Well, I think I like it. I mean, right now, the two major players I would call them in this trade, Jennings and Tate. Tate's injured; he's not playing this week, and I believe the same could be said for Jennings. With that being said, Tate, when he's healthy, yes, he can be productive. A lot of times when Houston gets ahead in the games, they'll give Arian a little rest and they let him run wild, and he's been known to do some pretty miraculous things, but know his role. He is a backup. When Jennings gets healthy, I think it's a head injury, so it's something to really watch because those concussions, they can screw you up for a little while. But there's no doubt about it, when Jennings is healthy, he's the man. Aaron Rodgers loves the guy. We've seen his production over the years. So there's a lot to be said for that. So you gave up a backup running back, and LaFell for Jennings. I like the move personally. I think it's good. He's got some pretty good depth at the other running back position. He does have DeMarco Murray, MJD, Spiller, who's come on strong this year. But again, he's in that backup position himself. But overall, I think I really like the trade, giving up the backup for a stud receiver.
No, I like it as well. I mean, obviously with Jennings' injury, you kind of wonder what's going on, when he's going to get back on the field. But Ben Tate's value strictly is limited to the health of Arian Foster. Every now and then, as in the other week, Ben Tate will explode, grab a couple touchdowns, vulture a couple touchdowns. But if you're relying on him as an every week starter, other than maybe as an upside flex play, then you're relying on him too much. So trading, and Brandon LaFell, he had a great week one, hasn't been seen since. Maybe he does come on strong later on, but you're getting a proven starter in Greg Jennings that once he's healthy, he's in your lineup. So yeah, Jersey, I think it's a good move. So tell you what, let's roll on. Got some injuries that we want to go over, so we'll make sure everyone is up to date as they can. Ryan Tannehill had a thumb injury. He's listed as probable. I think he was just added to the injury report. So, what would you expect from Ryan Tannehill if he want to play?
Well, I mean, obviously he's not my first. He probably doesn't crack my top 10 in quarterbacks this week. So depending on your league or your situation, I don't know if it's going to be that much fantasy viable. But however, his receivers are. This year, like with Hartline and with Best, they've been coming on strong. So, maybe it'll mess with their production a little bit. So if you have those guys, it's definitely something to consider. But as far as Ryan Tannehill from a fantasy perspective, I'm not starting him this week.
Well, I'll tell you, I led off with him. I mentioned him. I have him as my sleeper of the week. So when when the judge and I do our tidbits for Stud, Dud, and Sleeper, our favorite segment of the week, he is my sleeper of the week. So I am actually expecting a good game from him, and I'm hoping I'm right.
Injury or not? Injury or not? He's just coming out. He's coming out gangbusters. All right. I like it.
Yeah, I'm not expecting that the injury is going to be affecting him too much. So, but Ryan Tannehill, I think he's a good play this week. As you mentioned, his receivers have been putting up some good numbers. He's the one getting them the ball. I think they have a good defense. They seem to get behind a lot, especially teams that can pass. So I think we'll be seeing a lot of not a lot of huge games from Tannehill, but maybe a couple big unexpected games from him. And I think this week is one of them.
Oh.
There you go. A couple other injuries of note, just Mark Sanchez. I'm not sure anyone's expecting him to start for their team. He had some back injuries. He may or may not play based on what they want to do with Tebow. And then, of course, Jake Locker is out for this week. Most people that have Jake Locker, I'm sure, ran out and got Matt Hasselbeck, who may actually be a better fit for that Titan offense right now. So Matt Hasselbeck will be starting for the Titans.
Yeah, what a luxury for the Titans to have a veteran, tried, proven, a guy who's run this offense as well. He's been with the team, a few years now, and that's really a luxury for them. So, if they get into some quarterback trouble, to have a guy like Hasselbeck be able to step in and take the reins, that's good, and I think it'll help with, their receivers as well. They've got some chemistry, so I think that'll be a smooth transition.
Okay, before we get any further, I do just want to remind everyone that we have a call-in number. That's 877-511-1024, and the chat room is now open, so please feel free and get those chat questions in. And, again, we have our call-in number for our show. It's 877-511-1024. And we have actually someone on hold, so why don't we go to the call-in?
Sure.
All right. Let's see how long my computer takes. I'm not in my super infused home man cave, so the response times on my computer is a little bit slower. And trying to get the chat room up. So you have to bear with us for a little technical difficulties. Some of us are a little bit on vacation, so late night last night, early morning, as it happens. Let's move on to some of the running backs that are injuries. That have some injury issues. Matt Forte, he took a couple weeks off, tweaked his ankle in the first play, still had a fairly productive game last week. What do you expect out of Matt Forte this week?
No, I expect him to start, and I expect him to do great. If you drafted him, play him. Like I always say, we sit around and we play fantasy sports. This is guy's career. He's got coaches, he's got trainers, he's got people looking at this guy. If they clear him to play and they say he belongs on that field, well, then he belongs on that field. And like I said, if you drafted Matt Forte, you drafted him to score you lots of points. If he's playing, plug him in. Don't even worry about it. Think nothing of the injury.
I'll tell you what, board show on our callers live. So this is Jumpin' John and JB, and you're on the air.
Hi, this is Victor from Fantasy Player Exchange.
Yo,
that's what I thought, Victor.
What's going on, man? Hey,
how you guys doing?
We're doing great. Hey, sorry about Henry, man. Week after week, you just have to keep writing checks, man. He hasn't he hasn't prevailed yet. And from what I heard, he was 8th this week.
Yeah, he was definitely 8th. He way behind. He was at a pretty decent rate though, 24% return on investment. But the judge was number 1 at 54%.
Yeah, he just ran into a juggernaut this week, man. How do you expect to compete with that? I mean, that's just an awesome showing. But at your website, with the myriad of players and different venues that you can pick from all lines of sports, a week like that is possible. Not only in the as far as in beating the commish, but in general. From you have daily games, weekly games, and why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about it?
Sure. Well, our website name is fantasyplayerexchange.com, and there, actually, as of this moment, we're offering a free $10 play-in. All you have to do is go sign up, and you play for free $10 worth of games. We have games that start as a daily free game, so anybody can play that. We have games at $1, $2, and then obviously the Beat Commish game is our what we're really focusing on now is obviously beating Henry the Commish. It's a $2 weekly game. Every Sunday, everybody just puts in the $2, and they have to beat the Commish. Whoever has the highest return on investment every week will win $50 cash. And at the end of the entire football season, whoever the highest return on investment for 1 week over the entire year will get $1,000 cash. And they could pick players from any of the major sports that is active. So even on a Sunday, if there's still baseball playoffs going on, you could still have like Derek Jeter in your lineup if you had to.
Wow, that is just awesome. You know, like I said it last week, I'll say it again. You know, you can take all of your passions in sports, whether it be basketball, football, baseball, and you can combine them into one with your fantasy passions, and you can make it all happen at the Fantasy Football Player Exchange or Fantasy Player Exchange. What a great concept, man, and it's really cool. And so how is the Beat the Commish? How is that going thus far? So we've had a winner every week?
Yeah, so far we've had a $50 winner every week. The Commish has not won yet. The closest he's come is 2. But he's guaranteed a victory again this week, but this would be, you know, like the 5th week in a row he's guaranteed one, so we'll see how that goes.
Jumpin' John, have you played against the Commish yet in this?
Honestly, I have not been able to play against the Commish. I've been living vicariously through the judge, especially with his win last week. He is ecstatic about the offering, and of course he's ecstatic that he's able to beat the Commish because, yeah, let's face it, we all dream about beating the Commish, do we not?
Sure, I mean that's true. That's absolutely it is our ultimate goal.
It is the ultimate goal, yes. Now,
too bad it doesn't seem like it's that hard to do, though.
Yeah, well, apparently not, man. And like I said, you know, every week, if you're listening, okay, for the past 4 weeks, Victor here has had to write a $50 check for somebody's $2 investment every week. This week it could be you. This week it should be you. You should go to Fantasy Player Exchange right now, click on the Beat the Commish, you know, logo, and sign up. And I believe if you sign up today, can't you actually play this game for free?
Absolutely free. You get $10 of free money to play. We suggest you play the Beat the Commish game, and then you could play anywhere else, any other games we have active, or you can wait every week and play for 5 weeks and play those $10 if you wanted to.
Wow, that's great. That's
absolutely. I'm going to log on, and I'm going to have my 3-year-old come into the room, and we're going to go over a few picks. And then when we beat the Commish, I'm going to get my 3-year-old on the phone and talk about his strategy. Yeah.
That's fun. That sounds great to me. My 4-year-old helps me out sometimes. So.
So beat the Commish. I actually we talked about this on Tuesday, but I like having the college aspect as well. For those who don't know, that they've added the ability to pick college players as well. So with the way some of these Division 1 AA teams are, I guess you're not putting 1 AA games on the board. So if a Division 1A team plays a 1 AA team, is that game eligible
it's 1A. Well, yeah, all the Division 1A games. So like your top games are what you're looking at. You know, your USC's, your Notre Dame, but anybody in the top Division 1A is eligible to be in this game. So I mean, a day like yesterday, there were so many upsets. There were so many games that you would have, you know, if you had the right players, you could have really made some killings.
Yeah, so we were watching a bit of that WVU and Texas game. I think that's definitely a game that probably a lot of people has Geno Smith as the quarterback for West Virginia. So I'm sure a lot of people will be picking him. And I think I like that college aspect because those games are wild and shootouts, and anything can happen in the college game.
Not to mention, you're bringing something else to the table that nobody else is offering out there. So if you truly are passionate about sports and you truly are passionate about fantasy, you know, what a great place. Like I said, you can combine all of your passions together. And, be sure everybody, go to the site, check it out.
All right, thank you guys for having me on. Yet again, it's fantasyplayerexchange.com.
Great, thank you,
Vic. That's great, Victor. It's always a pleasure talking to you.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
All right, guys, so we're running up against our break time, so we're going to have a few words from our sponsors, including Pick Lillian, and we will be back in 2 minutes, so enjoy the commercials.
Now is your chance to experience the new game that's transforming fantasy sports. Fantasy Player Exchange is a new daily game that allows you to compete against friends and fantasy foes for cash prizes. With FPX, you can select 5 players from any active sport. Sign up now at fantasyplayerexchange.com for your chance to beat ESPN Radio's Henry the Commish Brick and win $1,000 cash. Go to fantasyplayerexchange.com to sign up and play today. Remember, that's fantasyplayerexchange.com.
Fantasy football owners, it's draft time, and KickassFantasyFootball.com makes it easy.
How do we make it easy?
Projections from the experts, cheat sheets with your scoring rules.
What else?
Articles all season long, waiver wire picks, trade advice, everything you need to win a championship.
How about a free judgment from FantasyJudgment.com, a $15 value?
Now we're talking.
Subscribe today for just $9.95. We'll throw in a complimentary cruise for 2 to the Bahamas.
Cruise to a championship with KickassFantasyFootball.com.
We're famous for our buffalo wings. The Piccalilli. When it comes to cooking wings, we're the king. The Piccalilli. Pull up a chair, grab a table, enjoy the atmosphere. Have something good to eat or have yourself around here. If you can't stop in, stop back. Great food, great treats where everybody is a friend. If you can't stop in, stop back. The Piccalilli Inn.
It isn't fall without the famous Piccalilli Inn. Catch all of your favorite football action at the Piccalilli Inn. Check out the Pick's brand new menu featuring homemade buffalo chicken egg rolls, buffalo shrimp, scallops, and the tender Pick burger. They go great with one of the Pick's ice-cold on-tap beers. Catch every football game at the Pick. Enjoy an awesome meal while you watch your favorite team. The Piccalilli Inn, a Jersey tradition since the 1920s. On Route 206 in Chemung. If you can't stop in, stop back.
The Piccalilli Inn.
All right, JB, we're back on the air for the Piccalilli Inn Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. Reminder, we do have a call-in line at 877-511-1024. Trying to have a few issues with the chat room, so anyone who's out there in the chat room, my apologies. But call in, we'll get your questions on the air. So we just had Victor from Fantasy Player Exchange on talking about the game. I love the fact that the judge was able to beat the commish. And it's some great talking points for our show, definitely. And we're talking about some injuries, so let's get right back to it. And JB, we talked about Matt Forte. I expect big things from him as well. A couple other injuries for running backs. Just Rashard Mendenhall, he's coming back. He's, I believe, expected to play. And being the big Pittsburgh Steelers fan you are, what do you expect from Mendenhall today and the rest of the season?
Well, today, you got to expect them to be shaking off a little bit of rust. And we all know that the Eagles' defense can be aggressive. And, if he can somehow get into the second level, I think he'll be fine. But getting through their, whatever they're going to throw at us today, whether it be their, 4-3 or whether it be that wide 9 or whatever, but getting through that first layer of defense is going to be tough. But it's going to be key. If he can get through that first layer of defense, I could expect, maybe possibly seeing him break a decent run. But, it is his first game back. It is a tough matchup. I'm not so sure I'm a Steelers fan. And I'm not so sure I'd be starting him in any format today. If you've got better options out there, you may want to look for them.
Yeah, I'm not expecting a lot from him this week. I definitely think he's a great pickup for the rest of the season just because the other Steeler running backs haven't done much with the opportunity they've had. I've been saying on air that I think, even from the beginning preseason that the Steelers are going to be airing it out a lot more with or without Mendenhall. I think that was the case. But, they still need a solid running presence in order to be successful and to blow through their schedule. So I think Mendenhall is a good pickup. And, with Jonathan Dwyer and Isaac Redmond, they haven't done well with the opportunities they've had. They've had some injuries nicked up as well. So I think Mendenhall has every opportunity to take the bulk of the workload.
You know what? And some guys just really do better in the roles they're designed to play. Like sometimes you have a backup guy or a change of pace type guy. Mendenhall should be your every down back. But, there's sometimes when you need to get that tough 1 or 2 yards and you can plug in somebody like that. And those role players are real. There's a reason they're role players. That's the way they're built. That's the game they know. And, sometimes it's tough to fill a starter's shoes, especially if you're not that wasn't your main goal on their team anyway.
No, absolutely. Some guys aren't built for that, but again, Mendenhall's been there, and so I think he's a good play. We actually have a caller online, so let's go ahead and take the caller. Let's see if my slow computer, how fast it can crawl. All right, welcome to the Pick Lily and Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. You're on the air with Jumpin' John and JB.
Hey guys, the J Brothers. How you guys doing?
Wonderful.
We're doing great.
I like that.
Right.
I like the moniker.
There we go.
J Brothers.
All right. Hey guys, I'm in a 10-team PPR league. Got a pretty solid roster going today, but I'm looking for some wide receiver help.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Let's choose the question.
All right. 10-team PPR. I'm starting Harvin and Lloyd. My flex spot, I'm looking at either Colston, Macklin, Kendall Wright, or possibly C.J. Spiller.
Wow. Colston, Macklin, Spiller, and who was the third guy?
Hello?
Yeah,
Kendall Wright.
Hey, we're here.
Kendall Wright's the fourth one. Yeah, so I'm very hesitant to use Macklin. I have him in a league or two, and maybe we can put you on mute. Can you go to mute real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Question?
Yeah,
right.
That's fine.
So Macklin, I think Macklin's tough. I wouldn't put him in until we know more about his injuries. He only had one catch last week, so I don't know if it was just because he's still recovering or if there's that target him, and that will change from week to week. But I would be hesitant to use Macklin. I think Kendall Wright's a pretty decent.
Joe, let him have it.
I think Kendall Wright's a pretty decent, pretty interesting player to put in. But until we know more of how his relationship with Hasselbeck's going to be, I probably wouldn't put him in. So we had C.J. Spiller going at San Francisco. That's a pretty tough matchup. So, and your fourth option was
Colston, and I think that's his man.
Colston. Yep. So
Y'all leave him alone. Let him play with it. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Hey,
all right.
you guys,
Thank you very much
for the call.
All right.
All right. So yeah, definitely Colston. I think he has some injury issues as well going in to the season. I think he's over those. So it's hard not to put the top skill receiver on a top offense there. So
hey, the J Brothers. What do you think, man? Can we take this to Hollywood or what?
We'll take it on. We'll do the road show, the J Brothers road show. There you go.
Hey, I'm digging it, man. Cool.
All right. So just one other running back of note, Arian Foster was listed as a hamstring issue. He did practice. Ben Tate didn't. So, I think he rolled with Foster, although he may not play hard the whole game, especially if they get up by a lot, which they're expected to. So just to keep that in mind. Let's cruise through some of these wide receivers that are listed. Not a whole lot of wide receivers, no. I do want to highlight Julio Jones, just because there was rumors of a hand injury last week. He did not have a great game. Not sure if it was just the coverage or if there was a hand issue. I think he's healthier, so he's expected to start. So Julio Jones, and then Hakeem Nicks is out. Dominic Hickson will start for him. So those are two of the big names for wide receivers that have some injury issues. And then, of course, Santonio Holmes is out for the season.
Yeah, that broken foot, that's going to hurt a already depleted Jets offense. They're horrible, and unfortunately they just got worse.
Yeah, they just, Stephen Hill, a promising rookie, is dealing with a hamstring issue. The Jets are just in bad shape. So for those of you that are Jet fans listening, my condolences.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, of course, if you're a Steeler and Eagles fan, any Jets or Giants injury issues are more of a good thing. So, all right. Well, I'll tell you what. We're running up against our second commercial break. We had the first one a little late, so let's get this one in on time, and then we'll get back with the Lily picks of the week. We'll go over the commission, the professor's picks real quick, and they can also be seen on our website, www.kickassfantasyfootball.com. All right, so we'll be back in 2 minutes with Jumpin' John and JB.
I'm sexy and I know.
Car Toys, the most innovative car customizing shop in its class. Summer is here, and so's the heat. Better get that remote start so you can cool off in your car in style with your smartphone. Car Toys can install remote start on Mercedes-Benz, push-button start, and stick shift. Reduce that glare with the best 3M window fill. And while you're at it, get your car detailed by Car Toys Detail Department so your ride looks, feels, and smells brand new. Car Toys defines what everything for your car really means, from TV to reality. That's why Car Toys is the leader in the industry in car customization. Car Toys' knowledgeable team are the best in their class. Like Car Toys on Facebook and check them out at distinctivecartoys.com.
Don't let your fantasy issues become a reality. Fantasy Judgment is the premier dispute resolution service for all fantasy sports leagues. Led by attorney Michael Stein, the Supreme Court of Fantasy Judgment will resolve any and all issues or conflicts that arise in fantasy leagues. This includes disputed trades, collusion, abuse of power by league commissioners, lineup and roster errors, draft issues, score discrepancies, and interpretation of league rules. We alleviate the burden for league commissioners and allow everyone to focus on winning their leagues rather than arguing over disputes. Visit www.fantasyjudgment.com.
Fantasy football owners, the Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show is back every Sunday this season with everything you need to cruise into a championship. Join me, the Professor,
and me, the Commish, along with fantasy insider Matt Lowry. Get all your fantasy football news as we break down all the players and tell you who to start and who to trade while we take your calls all show long.
We'll see you every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. all season long here on 97.3 ESPN. Check us out on the web at kickassfantasyfootball.com.
Listen up, fantasy football owners. If you want top quality, guaranteed authentic sports memorabilia, there's only one place to go. Prestige Sports Marketing. They offer autographed baseball and football jerseys, framed jerseys, helmets, bats, photos, and amazing artwork. They're 100% guaranteed authentic, so you can feel 100% confident. Check out Prestige Sports Marketing at PrestigeSportsMKTG.com. That's PrestigeSportsMKTG.com. Enter promo code ESPN and get 10% off.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Pickle Ian Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. So half an hour in, JV, I tell you, the judge and I always comment about how time flies, especially when you only have an hour. Our shows were an hour and a half last year. It just goes real quick, and talking fantasy football, I love it, and I love the games, and we're ready to roll. So
sounds good.
Sounds good. We're going to go to the Pickle Picks of the Week. These are picks from the commission, Professor. And one of the great things about having a show like this, especially when neither the commission or the professor are on, is you get to really rip into, all the mistakes they made.
Cool, man. Yeah, we get to critique them this week, so that sounds pretty fun to me.
All right, so we got some Pickle picks. We're going to go through them, and we're going to talk a little bit about whether we like them or not. So why don't you start off with some of the commission's picks?
The commission number one this week has got Andrew Luck versus Green Bay coming off their bye week. They really have no running game, and he'll have to pass it a ton to keep up. So he's got Andrew Luck up there as pick of the week.
I like that as well. Yeah, I think they're going to have to throw, and so that's not a bad pick. So let's roll on.
He's got a couple of quarterbacks. How about I'll go through his quarterbacks, and then you can pick on the professor's quarterbacks. How's that?
There you go.
He also has Cam Newton versus Seattle at home. Seattle was impressive on TV last week, and so they don't have much else, so Cam's going to have to get it done through the air and probably on the ground as well. And then finally, he has Ryan Fitzpatrick versus San Francisco. And to be honest with you, of the three picks, I don't like anybody versus San Francisco. So the Ryan Fitzpatrick one's kind of got me scratching my head a little bit. What do you think of the commission's picks this week?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think, for anything to happen for Carolina, Cam Newton has to make it happen, and maybe more with his legs. Seattle's tough and at home, so, and then I agreed. Anyone against San Francisco, I kind of scratched my head as well. So we'll give him kudos for the Andrew Luck pick, and hopefully he started a couple of these other ones in our Kick-Ass League, and so he's the only other undefeated, so maybe he can lose this week.
There you go.
So let's go with Professor. Professor has a couple quarterbacks here. Eli Manning against the Browns, Joe Flacco against Kansas City, and Phillip Rivers against the Saints. I definitely like one, hate one, and we'll have to see on the other one. I've definitely made known of my proclivity to pick against any Giants. I'm just not a big Eli Manning fan. I think Cleveland's defense is a little tougher than maybe they're expecting. So I'm not sure there's going to be a great game from Eli Manning. I really like the Phillip Rivers pick. The Saints defense, there really isn't much of one there. Phillip Rivers is a good quarterback. The Chargers are starting to get their act together. And I'm actually hoping he gets a touchdown too to Robert Meacham because I'm in a deep 16-team league, and I'm starting Meacham as one of my players. And then Joe Flacco, Kansas City. Kansas City's defense has been porous. They may do a lot more running than passing if they get up. So we'll have to wait and see on Joe Flacco. I think it's a great opportunity for him, but he may not get as many passing plays as normally would in a normal game. So those are the 3 picks.
Well, my side note there is anytime, and I don't care who you are, how good you are, what you've been doing, and what you've been doing lately, going into Kansas City is tough. It could be one of the hardest places to play in the NFL. They talk about Seattle with the 12th man. Well, hell, Kansas City, they might have the 13th man on their side because I'm telling you, talk about a loud, crazy stadium and a city that just absolutely loves their team, and that's tough for any quarterback to go into. And I'm not so sure he's amongst the ranks of the elites as far as changing calls and a signal caller at the line, and you almost have to be to succeed in that environment. So I don't know. I'm a little bit down on the Flacco pick. The other 2 picks, I love. I really do. Eli, I can understand your disdain. You're an Eagles fan. You're not supposed to like any Giants. But you know what? The guy's a pillar of consistency. And, and you could have a week where you think he's not doing anything for you, and then what do you know, in the fourth quarter, Eli throws 2 touchdowns and comes back and wins the game. So I like the Eli Manning pick. I think he's pretty consistent. And Rivers, I like anybody going up against the Colts this year. Sorry to say it, but they're not the same team without Peyton and some of those key players off of defense. So, yeah, anybody going up against the Saints is good by me.
All right, so let's roll into a couple other wide receiver, tight end types. We got some tight ends right here. So why don't you roll through some of the particularly tight end picks?
Okay, they got Fred Davis versus Atlanta. He's got Scott Chandler versus San Francisco, still scratching my head, and Heath Miller versus Philly. And wow, and as much as I'm a Steelers fan, I'm gonna start with this one. Philadelphia is pretty stingy, and they cover the tight ends pretty well. And I'm expecting some big plays out of our speed guys, actually. And Heath Miller wasn't one of the guys I was looking for this week to come off big, so that's got me a little, And same with the Scott Chandler versus San Francisco. Again, it's hard for me to really enjoy anybody versus San Francisco. But and then Fred Davis versus Atlanta, you got to love it. I mean, Fred Davis, he's been doing well this year. RG3's a beast, and I could see him being very productive this week.
But I'm going to count you on one of them. Actually, if there's one weakness in San Francisco's defense, it is against the tight end. Scott Chandler's gotten, I think, 4 red zone opportunities, caught them. So actually, as a tight end play against San Francisco, that would be the one call that I would say, go ahead and get your bill in. Scott Chandler, I think, has the opportunity. Let's go over the professor's picks. He's got first off, Vernon Davis. All right. Hey, Professor, Vernon Davis is a stud. Don't put him in the Piccoli pick.
Yeah.
Let's get a little bit more analysis in there. Okay, Vernon Davis, yes. Kyle Rudolph. Kyle Rudolph has made some great strides this year from Minnesota. The Minnesota offense is picking it up. Adrian Peterson's back to being Adrian Peterson. So I like Kyle Rudolph. I like him as an every week play, and so does the Professor. And then Jermichael Finley. I see the logic here. He says targets will go up, Greg Jennings out. And I think that's definitely something you hope for. So we'll see if it bears out. I think Jermichael Finley's been a little bit of a disappointment this year. I think he caught a touchdown in his first game and hasn't done a whole lot since. So we'll see if this is the week that he brings those touchdown catches up. So what do you think about the Professor's pick?
Yeah, I agree. Vernon Davis, I think he got a little bit tired and didn't want to do too much digging. Either that or he felt possibly the commish did all the digging for him. But yeah, the Rudolph thing I really do like, and he is becoming an every down or an every week play. And Finley, yeah, he needs to come back to the days of old. He hasn't been the Jermichael Finley that people had drafted in and hoped him to be. But who knows? Maybe this is the week we can get it done. If anybody knows, the Professor has made picks in the past that have made me scratch my head, but more often than not, that guy is right.
I will say he's definitely got a good head on his shoulders. He's backbone of the Kick-Ass Fantasy Show, so he gets more right than wrong. I'll give him that, but I still don't like his Vernon Davis pick. Come on, that's like picking Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback. All right, we know that. Move on. Come on, Professor. All right, so let's go to some wide receivers and some interesting picks for the commish. So why don't you start us off with commish picks at wide receiver?
Well, the commission's got Dominic Hickson versus Cleveland. I kind of understand the philosophy with Nix being out, so a little kudos. He's got Donnie Avery, I guess with the absence of Austin Collie, so Avery to step up, and then Brian Hartline. Now, I don't know if he's just riding the coattails of the awesome week that Hartline had last week, or if he actually believes in this kid and thinks that these good things are going to continue. And actually, I want to hear your take on this because you kind of like the quarterback. So, what do you think of the three picks here?
Well, and one of the reasons why I like the quarterback is Cincinnati defensive backfield is just a mess. They've had a lot of injuries. They're down a couple starters, and I think he can really throw on the Bengals. So I expect that for Miami. Brian Hartline, he's not. I wouldn't say he's a stud, but he's catching a lot of balls. So I think it's a good call. I think it's going to be a high scoring game. We know Cincinnati can score. They got a stud wide receiver in A.J. Green, who's emerging. I picked A.J. Green as a top 5 receiver in the preseason, and he's really starting to fit that bill. So, yeah, I like it. Donnie Avery, someone has to catch the ball. Austin Collie's out, and you know that they're going to throw against Green Bay. So, and Dominic Hickson will have every opportunity against Cleveland, but, with Nix out. But, yeah, I'm not sure it's going to be that high-scoring game. So, I temper those expectations on Dominic Hickson. As far as the professor goes, he's got Jerome Simpson, James Jones, and Nate Washington. So, again, there are a couple of good reaches here that he's going for. Jerome Simpson, he first came back last week, starting to get a rapport with Christian Ponder. And I think, I'm not sure he's going in the stud category yet, but we'll see how it progresses. Again, talk about opportunities. He's got every opportunity. James Jones, I really like this one. I have Jordy Nelson in a couple different leagues, so I'd rather Jordy Nelson get the passes than the touchdowns. But I think with Greg Jennings out, he's going to look for James Jones. So if James Jones can actually catch the ball, he could be in for a big game. And then Nate Washington. Nate Washington's best games last year were with Hasselbeck. So again, look for some big things out of Nate Washington with Hasselbeck starting. I think it's a great pickup. It's a great call to get Nate Washington in the game, especially looking at that relationship that he had with Hasselbeck last year.
Yeah, I kind of agree, and I like the way that he's taking advantage of the guys who are stepping in to fill in for some roles. You mentioned with James Jones, with Jennings being out, and then the same with Nate Washington with Kenny Britt not playing. And then kind of sneaking the same philosophy in the back door with Simpson. I mean, it's only his second game back. A lot of people haven't seen a lot of tape on him for this year. They'd have to dig into some archives to kind of get a feel for what he's going to do. He had a game to shake off some rust. So I could definitely see him getting a lot of looks this week. I like all those picks.
All right, so let's move on real quick. We'll get the running backs in before our break. So why don't you lead us off with the Commission's running backs pick for the Piccoli picks of the week? Go ahead.
All right. He's got Darren Sproles versus San Diego. He's got Matt Forte versus Jacksonville, and he's got Ryan Matthews versus New Orleans. First, let me start by saying I think we can line you up as a fullback, me at the tailback, and we can run on Jacksonville this week. So, yeah, they're horrible. Matt Forte, he's cleared to play. I think he's going to do wonderful things against Jacksonville. I guess he's got him in here because of the injury-prone. Otherwise, I think you have to put Forte in that stud category, and he really wouldn't belong here otherwise. But I really like that play today. And then Sproles is just awesome, and he's PPR gold. I mean, if you get him out of the backfield, if you're in a PPR league, he's going to catch a lot of balls, and he's going to get it done that way. And then Matthews versus New Orleans. Wow, look out Jackie Battle. That's all I got to say for that one.
Yeah, it was an interesting dynamic last week. I think he was being punished. I can't see Jackie Battle moving into the number one role. Ryan Matthews clearly has more of the talent, and we talked about New Orleans defense and the lack thereof. So definitely a good pick. I'm with you on picking Forte versus Jacksonville. Just making sure people understand he's back. He's better than ever, and he should be running all over Jacksonville. And Sproles, especially in PPR, he's got to be an every week starter. So let's go over the professor's picks. He's got Marshawn Lynch, Trent Richardson, and Cedric Benson. I'll tell you, two of those names I like a lot. I have in a couple starting lineups. Marshawn Lynch is my stud of the week. He was my pick stud of the week. He was my pick last week. I did him 2 weeks in a row. I'm not sure that's legal, but when it's my show, I can do what I want. So I had Marshawn Lynch as stud of the week, so I definitely like that. Cedric Benson. I actually have an offer. Someone wanted to trade Torrey Smith for Cedric Benson, and I'm mulling it. But I really like Cedric Benson's play this week. I think to get the league, they're going to run the ball, and they're committing to using him a lot more. So I like keeping Benson this week. I may end up trading him for Torrey Smith. If he has a good week, I may try and move him up for a higher quality wide receiver. But so the only one I'm not sure about is Trent Richardson. The Giants have a great rush, a passing defense, rushing the passer. I'm not sure the running defense is as up to snuff because maybe they're concentrating too much on getting to the quarterback. So that could be a very interesting pick. Trent Richardson obviously a starter, is getting all the carries for Cleveland, so it could be a big game for Trent Richardson. What do you think, JB?
Yeah, I definitely agree, and you nailed it. The Giants' rush defense is pretty poor. They're not even in the top 20, I believe. They give up a lot of yards on the ground, so I like the philosophy there. And Marshawn Lynch, just oh my God, what else could you say? He literally is a beast. He's going to enjoy his day in the sun today. Cedric Benson, I'll tell you what, I don't know which league you're talking about and how your depth looks there, but Ced Bed for Torrey Smith. If you're already pretty stout at the running back position, yeah, you definitely should look into that trade. Torrey Smith, he's a big play type of guy. I don't know if you're getting bonuses for long touchdowns and stuff but you got to take all of that into consideration. He's a guy that's going to break, and he's going to get you that 30, 40, 50-yard touchdown pass, a couple times this year. So, that's definitely a trade worth looking into if you have enough depth at the running back position.
Yeah, my problem there is my backups are LaSure for Detroit, who's on a bye this week, and Chris Johnson, who had a great game last week, but I'm not sure he's going to do it against Minnesota. So I think I think maybe I'd rather the upside for Benson this week before trading him. Yeah. So that's my thought process. But all right, I'll tell you what, we're running up against our final break. This is the Pickle Lillian Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. And we're going to come right back. I'll tell you what, when we come back, let's talk a little bit more about our own studs and sleepers, and then we'll finish the segment. So, tell you what, we got about 2 minutes, and we'll start off with a spot from Pickle Lillian. So we'll be back in 2 minutes.
We're famous for our buffalo wings. The Piccalilli. When it comes to cooking wings, we're the king. The Piccalilli. Pull up a chair, grab a table, enjoy the atmosphere. Have something good to eat or have yourself around here. If you can't stop in, stop back. Great food, great drinks where everybody is a friend. If you can't stop in, stop back. The Piccalillian.
It isn't fall without the famous Piccalilli Inn. Catch all of your favorite football action at the Piccalilli Inn. Check out the Pick's brand new menu featuring homemade buffalo chicken egg rolls, buffalo shrimp, scallops, and the tender Pick burger. They go great with one of the Pick's ice-cold on-tap beers. Catch every football game at the Pick. Enjoy an awesome meal while you watch your favorite team. The Piccalilli Inn, a Jersey tradition since the 1920s. On Route 206 in Chemung. If you can't stop in, stop back.
The Piccalilli Inn.
Don't let your fantasy issues become a reality. Fantasy Judgment is the premier dispute resolution service for all fantasy sports leagues. Led by attorney Michael Stein, the Supreme Court of Fantasy Judgment will resolve any and all issues or conflicts that arise in fantasy leagues. This includes disputed trades, collusion, abuse of power by league commissioners, lineup and roster errors, draft issues, score discrepancies, and interpretation of league rules. We alleviate the burden for league commissioners and allow everyone to focus on winning their leagues rather than arguing over disputes. Visit www.fantasyjudgment.com.
Listen up, fantasy football owners. If you want top quality, guaranteed authentic sports memorabilia, there's only one place to go. Prestige Sports Marketing. They offer autographed baseball and football jerseys, framed jerseys, helmets, bats, photos, and amazing artwork. They're 100% guaranteed authentic, so you can feel 100% confident. Check out Prestige Sports Marketing at prestigesportsmktg.com. That's prestigesportsmktg.com. mktg.com. Enter promo code ESPN and get 10% off.
All right, everybody, welcome back to our final segment of the Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show, sponsored by Pick Lily Inn. So we got about 10 minutes left. We're going to go over some studs, and sleepers. And then if we have a little bit of time at the end, maybe we'll talk real quick about Eagles-Steelers game, because JB, I actually have one more very important question for you about the Steelers and Eagles game. So let's roll into real quick. Studs, and sleepers. And, as much as I know you want to, you can't name me as a stud, JB. So, having that out on the table, why don't you start off? Who do you see as a stud, and sleeper this week?
Well, if I'm not allowed to pick the host of the show, then I'm going to go with Matt Ryan this week versus Washington. Washington is absolutely dismal against the pass, and Ryan's got all sorts of weapons like, Roddy White and Julio Jones and Gonzo, so I really think he's going to tear it up today, and Matt Ryan could come out on top in the quarterback world today.
Matt Ryan is definitely a stud. I liked him going in the season. I saw him as top 5, so I'm okay with Matt Ryan as a stud. I like to reach a little bit more for my studs, although he's definitely playing into that role as an every week stud, and that's Marshawn Lynch. We talked about him earlier in the show. I expect big things out of him, and I expect big things every week. And I think Seattle's going to be mad about how last week went, and I think they're going to take it out. They're going to take it out this week. So I see a pretty good running over from Marshawn Lynch in beast mode, and I think Carolina's just got a poor run defense. They're just getting run on everywhere, and I think they're going to get run on versus Seattle.
Release the beast. I like it.
Yeah.
Cool.
So all right, who's your dud of the week?
My dud of the week could wind up being the dud of the year. I may just be picking on the guy at this point, but hell, Mark Sanchez. Mark Sanchez is the dud of the week, and like I said, very well could be the dud of the season. Not that I know if anybody drafted him all that high and had too many expectations for him, but again, when your quarterback's a dud, you're affecting the other players on the team as well. So, he's not helping his tight ends, he's not helping his wide receivers, he's not helping the running game. Not that Sean Green can run away from a cat at this point, but, Mark Sanchez is definitely my dud of the week, and who knows, maybe we'll get to see a little bit of Tim Tebow. Not that he's much better, but at least it keeps it interesting.
Well, I'll tell you what, the judge and I instituted a rule on our show, and I think the commission will be wise to follow that. You're no longer allowed to call any New York Jet player a dud. Because
they're just that bad. It's a foregone conclusion.
It's a foregone conclusion. You can't call a running back against San Francisco a dud, and you can't call any New York Jet a dud. It's just not fair.
Okay, I think I like that rule. I'm going to run it by the commission this week. Maybe we can institute it. I think it should be the theme of the Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show, because you may be on to something.
So I'm going out on a limb, but I think for good reason. My dud of the week is going to be Maurice Jones-Drew.
Wow.
Everyone, yes. Everyone's expecting him to put up RB1 numbers every week. Chicago's pretty good against the run last week. DeMarco Murray did little or nothing. I think Chicago gets up big, and Jacksonville's going to have to pass. So I don't think there's much action for Maurice Jones-Drew. So he, all the talent in the world, but he is my dud of the week.
Wow, yeah, that is a bold prediction, man. I think there's a lot of people out there who, if they're listening to you, like I know me being one of them, I'm going to start them anyway. But I like the philosophy. And I know what you're saying. You're not saying that he may lay a goose egg. You're just saying he's not going to put up those running back number one. Like, is he viable as a flex this week, or is he complete dud?
Again, I think you almost have to start him, especially since you draft. For those of us that say you drafted Chris Johnson as their first pick, you're stuck as well. But Maurice Jones-Drew, you're going to play him. I don't think he does much, and I think Chicago's going to have a pretty good game. Let's talk about Forte, yeah. So all right. So let's get into sleepers. I've already mentioned mine, so it's not going to be much of a surprise. But who do you have for sleeper of the week, JB?
Well, this is a sleeper. I don't need. There's going to be people out there who are going to say who, but my sleeper of the week is Ty Hilton. He is going to be the third receiver for Andrew Luck this week as he faces Green Bay. And as we all know, Green Bay does two things. Number one, they score a lot of points, and when it comes to putting the ball up in the air, they can't stop a lot of people. So, this is definitely a deeper sleeper. But Ty Hilton, I think he's going to be able to get it done. He's going to be seeing the single coverages. He's going to be, playing against the softer side of the zone and all of those good things that can make, wide receivers look good. And I think he's going to actually put up viable fantasy numbers this week.
Yeah, I think it's a good sleeper call. We'll see whether it pans out. I think it's definitely, Andrew Luck's going to be slinging the ball against Green Bay, and you have to cover every wide receiver. If a receiver has talent, he'll find it. And Hilton has talent, so sleeper of the week. That's a good call. My sleeper of the week, no surprise, Ryan Tannehill. I think, no one's expecting much from Tannehill. Obviously put up great numbers last week, 400 yards. Whether he gets 400 yards this week, I'm not sure, but definitely going to go for 300 and a couple TDs. Cincinnati defense, they're just in trouble in the backfield, and Cincinnati can sling the ball as well. So I think it's going to be a high-scoring game, and I think Ryan Tannehill is a viable starter quarterback, especially if you have bye weeks and especially if you're in a two-quarterback league. So sleeper of the week is Ryan Tannehill. And I just want to remind everyone that we do have 4 bye weeks, 4 teams on bye week this week. So that's Dallas, Detroit, Oakland, and Tampa Bay. So make sure they're not in your lineup. If you're managing your fantasy roster, those guys need to be sitting down. Tell you what, we got 5 minutes left. I have a very important question I need to ask you. I went out on a limb, touted Antonio Brown as a top wide receiver for the season, and I'm actually sitting him this week. I'm not sure what to expect out of the Eagles defense, and I have Dwayne Bowe starting in front of Antonio Brown this week. So, Steeler guru, knowledge of all things Steelers. What do you think of Antonio Brown? What do you think of my decision to sit him? Because I'm not liking it, but I think I have to do it.
Wow. Okay, I'm a little bit surprised here. Now, obviously, the bigger targets for the end zone as you get close down inside the 20. Mike Wallace is a big-bodied guy. Plus, he's got that speed and he can get open. Generally, I would say the same about Heath Miller. He's a big-bodied guy, and these are the guys he's going to be looking for down around the end zone. With that being said, Antonio Brown has got to be one of the best possession receivers in the league. So I don't, again, in PPR, I would tell you you're nuts. And, because he's a guy that's probably going to go out. He's going to catch, 4 to 6 balls, and he's going to get you, 75 to 100 yards. And that's it's almost like easy money. So, if you need a guy that you need to plug in and you're just looking to get that, 10 points out of him, he's your man. Now, you make me feel a little bit better saying that you're replacing him with Dwayne Bowe. So, I'm not too upset with you. I myself may even make the same call. I don't know. I got to sit down. I haven't thought about it because I wasn't in your situation. However, Antonio Brown is a great possession-type receiver, and he is going to sneak up on you, and he's going to, he is going to get you a certain amount of touchdowns this year. I'm looking at him around that, 6 to 8, maybe 9 touchdowns out of him this year is what I'm hoping for as a Steelers fan. But realistically, in that 6 to 8 range.
No, and I agree. And I hate sitting him. It kind of has leaving a bad taste in my mouth just because I did tout Antonio Brown as a top 5 receiver this week. I like to go out on a limb. That was definitely an out on a limb call. I just think, Kansas City, a lot of Dwayne Bowe's points are coming in garbage time, catch up in fourth quarter. They're playing a tough team in Baltimore. That I think you can pass on. And, I can see Baltimore getting ahead in the game, and I can see Kansas City having to catch up and chucking the ball to Dwayne Bowe. So that's a big reason.
He made a catch last week that was just absolutely ridiculous. He's showing you why, Dwayne Bowe is who he is. And, wow, I don't know if you got to watch any of that game last week, but, he jumped up, reached up with one hand, grabbed the ball, fell down on his back, held on to it. It was just absolutely amazing, and it was the clutch point in the game. The guy is an absolute beast. That being said, though, I have a question for you. Speaking of Eagles and Steelers, who wins this game?
The heart says Eagles are going to pull it out in the squeaker. The head thinks Steelers are going to be able to pass on the Eagles and win a close game late in the fourth quarter.
Wow. Okay. They win it late in the fourth quarter. I can see this game being over by halftime, but again, that's Steelers coming off a bye. They've got a losing record. Interesting fact for you. I don't know if anybody even out there knows this. Do you realize that since he's taking over as head coach, the Steelers have never, ever lost a game while they had a losing record? Did you know that?
Well, there's a little tidbit for you to end the show. So the genius that is JB. So John, I tell you, I like that. Still needs to watch the Steelers and Eagles game and maybe go down to the Piccalilli Inn and do it. So
hey, there you go.
The Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. I want to thank all our listeners, and we'll be back on Tuesday night.
Great. Thanks, guys.